So what if a company could fund a brand new solar farm that's hundreds of miles away, never actually use a single electron it produces, but still get all the credit for going green? Sounds a bit like magic, right? Well, that's the power of a really groundbreaking financial tool called the Virtual Power Purchase Agreement, or VPPA. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this innovative contract and explore how it could be the real key to unlocking India's renewable energy future.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the massive challenge India is facing with its green energy goals. Then, we'll see how the VPPA steps in as a pretty brilliant solution. After that, we'll dive into how it actually works, the nuts and bolts. We'll also talk about these green credits and what makes them so valuable. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the bigger picture, why this matters for everyone.
Okay, so first things first, why do we even need something like a VPPA? Well, to get that, you have to understand the enormous scale of India's green energy mission and the new legal pressure that's being put on some of the country's biggest businesses.
Check out this number: 500 gigawatts. That is the massive, ambitious target India has set for its non-fossil fuel energy capacity by 2030. Now, to put that into perspective, that's a colossal amount of energy. Hitting a number that big isn't just about building power plants. It's about creating a whole new market to make it all happen.
So how do you get a whole country moving towards a goal that huge? The government's main strategy is this powerful legal tool called the Renewable Consumption Obligation, or RCO. Basically, this rule targets the biggest energy users. We're talking factories, huge data centers, industrial plants, and it legally forces them to get a certain percentage of their power from renewable sources.
And let's be really clear here. This is not just a friendly suggestion. The RCO is mandatory. If these big companies don't hit their green energy quota, they face some serious financial penalties. You can see how this really lights a fire under them to find new and flexible ways to go green and fast.
So you have this mandatory rule that created a huge need for a new kind of tool, something that was flexible, something that could scale up, and something that didn't involve building a ton of physical infrastructure. And that's where the Virtual Power Purchase Agreement comes in. It's an incredibly innovative answer to this exact problem.
Now, India's regulators didn't have to invent this from scratch. They looked around at what was working in other countries and saw that the VPPA was a proven model. It was this powerful way for companies to meet those RCO targets without the massive headache and cost of, building their own solar farm.
So what exactly is a VPPA? Well, the best way to think about it is as a financial deal, not a physical one. A company agrees to pay a renewable energy project a fixed price for its power over a long period, maybe 10 or 15 years. But here's the virtual part: they never actually get the electricity. Instead, they get something that's just as valuable: the project's official green credentials.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. How does a virtual agreement actually work in the real world? I mean, how can a company fund green energy without ever actually touching the electrons? It all comes down to a really smart financial setup.
Believe it or not, the process is pretty straightforward. First, the company and the green energy generator, let's say a solar farm, agree on a fixed price for power. They call it the strike price. Then, the solar farm just sells its electricity to the main grid at whatever the fluctuating market price is. After that, they just settle the difference. So if the market price is low, the company pays the solar farm to make sure it still makes its money. If the market price is high, the farm actually pays the extra back to the company. And then the final crucial step, the company gets all of the project's valuable green credits.
This shows the virtual idea perfectly. You've got two separate tracks. On one track, the physical electricity flows from the solar farm into the grid, powering homes and businesses. On a totally separate track, you have the financial contract, the money, and the green certificates flowing directly from the generator to the company. The two paths never even have to cross. It's brilliant. So if the company isn't getting any actual electricity, what are they paying for? Well, the real prize for them, the whole reason they do this, is to get those green credits. That's the key to meeting their legal obligations. These credits are called Renewable Energy Certificates, or RECs. You can think of a REC as an official receipt that proves 1 megawatt hour of electricity was produced from a clean source, like wind or solar. It's basically the official proof of the greenness of that power.
Now, what's really important about the RECs you get from a VPPA is that they are on a one-way trip. They're created by the generator, they're transferred to the company, and then the company uses them to prove they met their RCO target. And once they're used, they're extinguished, they vanish, they can't be sold again. This is super important because it prevents any double counting and proves the company's investment is actually helping to add new green energy to the grid. All right, so we've looked at the big challenge and the very clever solution. Now let's just zoom out for a second. What's the real-world impact of all this financial wizardry? Why does this really matter?
Well, what you end up with is a true win-win-win scenario. For the green energy producers, that guaranteed price gives them predictable revenue, which makes it way easier to get loans to build new projects. For the companies, it's a super flexible and simple way to meet their legal targets without any of the headaches of managing physical infrastructure. And for India as a whole, it unlocks a ton of corporate investment to build all that new green energy capacity needed to hit that massive 500 gigawatt goal. So when you get right down to it, VPPAs really represent a major shift in thinking. They show us that solving our biggest energy problems might depend just as much on smart financial engineering as it does on physical engineering, which leaves us with a really interesting question to think about. Could it be that the fastest path to a green future is paved not just with power lines, but with smarter financial contracts like these?